I love to sing about the moon and June and spring. I love to sing about the sky so blue and a T for two in your thing with the swing. And I love you and I love. Wow. I really thought you'd be insulting me.
No.
And instead of joining in.
No, I was going with that. I've never heard of it. I don't know what you were singing, but I liked it.
Be good humans. Be good humans. Be good humans, or we will think you suck. Be good humans. Be good humans. Be good humans, or we will think you suck.
I've never heard of it. I don't know what you were singing, but I liked it.
Oh, it's a song from my favorite cartoon of all time.
What cartoon?
It was, I think, the 30s.
I didn't realize you went back that far.
It was called Owl Jolson.
Owl Jolson.
Yes,
that's
Owl
cute.
Jolson. It was about this little owl who was forced to sing boring songs, and his minister and the church made him sing all these boring songs, and when they weren't looking, I love to sing it. Very swingy, very swingy, very swingy. And in fact, Al Jolson actually sang that song in a movie.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What, do you know which one?
We're not going to have time for the whole show.
We really
keep going.
I know. Because I was going to riff on Brian. How I love you. How I love you. I do love you, and we love you. It's nice to be back. Welcome back to Be Good Humans, dear friends. If you're watching us, before I forget, if you're watching us on YouTube, by the way, do us a favor. Click like and subscribe. I know we're all taught as children not to feed alligators, but we do need to feed the algorithm. So like and subscribe.
Ooh.
Yeah, you see it?
Wow.
I like to sing it. I like to sing it. Okay. While you're at it, also, by the way, join us on Patreon. There is I like the backing music. No. There's a link on our website, begoodhumanspodcast.com, where you can get exclusive access to all kinds of extra content, like maybe him singing this ad nauseum.
I love to sing it. About sky so blue.
Okay.
We should move on.
Join us there. By the way, we've also just dropped a couple of bonus episodes that you can't see anywhere else. So go do that. But that's not. I don't want to talk about any of this. I don't even want to talk about Al Jolson. Can we talk about parenting?
You can talk about anything you want to talk about, Bud, but I just think it'd be a little lopsided since you have 3 amazing children, and I'm not a parent. Well, let me. Not in this state that I know of. But yeah, we can talk about parenting.
Can we please? Because I know we've done it a little bit before. But also, you know, because for a good reason, our parents were the OG good humans in our lives.
Very much so.
And I know it's clear that we both loved our parents very much. Sadly, your folks are no longer with us. I lost my mother a few years ago. I'm blessed to say I still have my dad around. But I would love to hear more about what you love the most about your mom and dad, about your mom, about your dad, but also about them as a couple.
I think there's not a most in this. What I love the most, there are just many, many, many mosts.
Do tell.
First of all, I was kind of lucky that it was lucky for me because my parents were very young when they got married. And that means I kind of got to, as I grew up, watch them grow up.
Sure.
Okay. So my dad was 17.
Okay.
My mom was 20.
Wow.
When they got married. In fact, that's their wedding day. That's
oh my God, of course it is.
20 years old. And by the way, that's them in their 60s skydiving.
That I knew.
I took them skydiving.
Okay, so he's 17, she's 20.
She's 20. There is a photo that was actually statewide. This is it came out of Kewanee, Illinois, the town I was born in.
Sure.
And basically my whole family. Small town. But there's a photo that went statewide in all the newspapers. It's a photo of my father sitting on the end of the couch holding his first infant child, my sister Debbie.
Nice.
Next to him is his mother, my grandma Phelps, which is, there's a picture of her there too.
Okay.
Next to Grandma Phelps is a picture of her mom, Grandma Miller. Next to Grandma Miller
no way.
Sits her mother, Grandma Morris. 5 generations.
That's incredible.
5 generations.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's like newsworthy stuff to have that many people together.
And it was. They were so proud that it made, the paper statewide. But so mom and dad had me when dad was 22.
I can't even imagine this.
They had my younger brother Jeff when he was 24. So 3 kids before the age of 25. Are you kidding me?
No, I mean,
I can't conceive of that.
I think they just made 20-somethings different back then.
Yeah.
But that's amazing. And then they were together for many years, your folks.
Until the day.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And still, they were so much in love. They were so incredibly in love that even, in their 60s and then pushing 70 and 80, that if cars still had bench seats, Mom would be sliding over. Okay. They held hands. Dad called her pretty lady. They were incredibly love this quick story. And I just thought of it. It wasn't in my notes, but she had a sister. My mom had a sister, my Aunt Darlene, and who lived out here with her husband in California. Yeah. And Dad said, if you want to fly out to visit your sister, I can't get away from work, but I'll take care of the kids and I'll do this. Oh, she was so like, oh, thank you. So she flies out. 2 days go by. Yeah. And they get on the phone just to say hi. How's it going?
Sure.
And Dad, she could tell by my dad's voice that he was sad without her. Probably sad by taking care of us too,
yeah.
but mainly sad without her. He couldn't exist.
Wow.
So she got on a plane after just 2 days and flew home.
Wow.
Happily, because she was so proud. So proud.
That's sweet.
Yeah.
How do you describe them as parents of you? I mean, obviously you had siblings as well, but like, what's your experience as the kid, but also as the adult now? Like when you look back on it, what was particularly good about their parenting?
Well, I can go in this direction, and you might have a story about the same, but I can remember the exact moment in my life, the exact day, the minute, what I was looking at in my life, that my parents became not just parents that I loved, that loved me unconditionally, but they became my friends. My friends.
Tell me.
I consciously thought, oh my God, my friends. All right. I was like 10, and my sister got into a little trouble. Okay. Nothing bad, but she just got a punishable offense. Okay. Yeah. So she was like early teens, maybe just 13.
Yeah.
And so they did the parent thing. They said, we're going to ground you for 2 weeks. That didn't go over well. They had an argument about it, and my sister ran away.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, she ran away.
Okay.
So there we all are sitting in the living room, no TV, no radio, nothing going on, just dead silence. And I'm looking at my parents at 10 years old. The worry, the concern, they were destroyed.
Yeah.
And they were just staring, and I could actually see gray hairs growing out of their heads.
This is a critical moment for you too, because you're all eyes.
Very
in this.
critical, and these are my heroes.
Yeah.
So the phone finally rings, and it's Debbie, and she's crying, and she said, I want to come home. I'm so sorry, very apologetic, ready to take whatever punishment she's going to get. They were just thrilled. They were happy. Before Dad went to pick her up, Dad sat my brother and I on the couch, and he kneels down. So now he's eye to eye with us. And he said this, I'll never forget these words. He goes, I want you to know something. Your mother and I will never judge you for someone else's mistake. And then he gets a smile on his face, and he said, clean slate, have a great time. Now, luckily, I was just barely old enough to comprehend what an amazing moment that was. Yeah. That, he wasn't going to be judging us.
Yes, judgment free.
Yeah, and become a different parent now that they had a child that ran away.
Yeah.
That was a major moment for me, and that was the day that I realized that they were my friends too.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. My family...
I made it up, but yeah. I mean,
it's even prettier.
I'm kidding.
No, my family did something that was certainly important and significant at the time, but in retrospect over the years has taken on even greater meaning for me. But we had a family band.
Yeah.
So there was a music room in our house, nothing, super big or special or fancy because we were strictly middle class, but like we had a music room in our house, and my parents both actively encouraged this participation in a family band. And it was only for us, like we didn't play anywhere or anything, but there was a drum kit in the corner of the room that was for me, and my sister would play keys on a little Hammond organ kind of thing. Sure. And then my dad would play electric lead guitar because, he was always a musician, still is. And my mom would play bass, big Fender concert jazz bass.
Really? Your mom played bass? Are these cover songs or are you writing?
It was all like. By the way, I was convinced that the Beatles song "Love Me Do" that my parents wrote that song.
Oh, wow.
I thought like well into my teens that was their song. But we would get together a couple of times a week and we would play music together. And in retrospect, I think it was a super, super important series of lessons. Some of it was, of course, about how to learn to play an instrument on your own. Some of it was about how to play and interact with other people. But it was also just, for me, in retrospect, a really powerful model for the importance of sharing joy with your family.
Yeah.
Like just pure joy with no other agenda other than let's learn something together and let's enjoy the sound of our singing together in harmony and playing a song. And so that really stuck with me.
And just a caveat to when my sister ran away, at that moment when Dad said that, I thought that they trust me and I never want to be the cause of seeing those faces that were so concerned and so distraught. And so I became what my mother, when I grew up, once said to me, goes, yeah, when you were a boy, you were a goody two-shoes. And I was, because I never wanted to disappoint them. And because of that, they trusted me. I never had a curfew.
Oh, wow.
Never. I could get home whatever time I wanted. The only thing I needed to do was tell them I'm home. They're in bed already. And they left the door open a crack. So as I walk by their bedroom and then I go up the stairs to my room, I walk by, I go, Dad? And he'd go, yeah, Bri, sleepy. And I go, I'm home. Okay, thank you. And that's all I had to do. But then again, one night, 11:30, I'm home. I'm walking by their door. I go, Dad? And this is what I hear. Yeah.
That was lovely for anyone listening, by the way.
and I'm home, Dad. Great, good, thank you, great. And I know what was going on. This was when I was older, in the teen years.
Yes.
Great.
See, here's the thing, though. You've just helped me make my point, which is that it's easy for us to idolize our parents as parents, these people who just took care of us without judgment, in the most ideal senses. But it's also, I think you can make a pretty good argument that it's important for you and me and for all of us in our efforts to be good humans to sort of at a certain point start to realize and accept that as good as our parents were, and maybe still are in my case, they were also just human beings trying to make their way through the world, right? They were still living their lives. Yeah. They're still wrestling in the covers or whatever.
Like I said, I grew up with them growing up.
Right. So were there times when you, as an adult, as you got older, where you suddenly started to feel a little more clarity about your folks as people, kind of a different kind of respect for what they had gone through, or when they felt maybe more humanized in a way?
One of my favorite times, like you in the family room, is they became my best friends. Better friends than you, better friends than Dan. I mean, my best friends. And I didn't know a lot of kids that could say that.
No.
But one of my favorite times is we would always play poker, sitting around the table playing a poker, dealer's choice. Yeah. And every holiday, every family get together was just 4 or 5 of us, whoever was together. And they'd have a cocktail or something, and I'd start asking them questions. And once they're loose, they would inform me stuff I didn't even know.
Yeah, they opened
that's
up.
Why that happened. Oh, when you were dropping us off at Grandma's house every Saturday night, we were going to a hotel. Like, that kind of that makes all the sense in the world to me now.
Right. And so they were open about that, sharing that kind of stuff.
Now, you being a parent, though, I mean, think that your kids are the youngest. Cosmo is.
Yeah, he's 20.
20.
Yeah.
And have they reached that point yet where they see you as not just a parent, but
I
a
hope
human
so.
being?
I hope so, because I've been pretty open with them about, like, my mother, for example, an incredible woman, one of the most creative, talented people I've ever known, a brilliant writer, taught me how to read when I was a kid, just a very powerful, creative influence in my life, but also an alcoholic. And you know, thankfully, she finally got sober after a pretty long run of some ugliness. But then she didn't just get sober. She went back to school. She got double master's degree. She became a Presbyterian minister. She wound up helping thousands of people, literally.
Wow.
And I've always been very open with my kids about that in order to not only humanize a grandparent, but just humanize myself, hopefully, in that process. But I'm probably not the best person to speak about this. I don't know whether they see me as a human being or not.
What you should do sometime is maybe invite one of your kids in.
I know where this is going.
You really should. Yeah, invite one of your kids. Oh, you know, I love them all equally, but I guess my favorite is because he's also a DJ at a radio station in college. And I've seen some of his stuff, and it's brilliantly funny and wonderful. Cosmo.
Yeah.
I'd love to. Why didn't you bring Cosmo? Cosmo.
Maybe I did.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh. Well, we have a guest coming up, but can we talk to him really quick?
Can we squeeze him in?
Yeah, let's do.
Come here.
Cosmo, ladies and gentlemen, Cosmo Calloway.
Look at that.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Hello, handsome.
Is everybody in your family gorgeous model type? Look at
It has nothing to do with my genetics.
This is his daughter. This is Clem.
Yeah. And Crockett's over here, right behind you.
Jeez, movie stars, all of them.
Cosmo's home for the summer, and I dragged you along. Sorry.
You did. No, I'm happy to be here. Hi guys.
Hi guys.
Hey,
Welcome to the show. All right. I can assume just by seeing you two together.
I'm starting to sweat. Hey, go ahead.
I did have. Well, okay. Since you said that, I did have a question. It might be a little too.
Yeah, don't ask it.
All right.
No, Brian, ask it.
Okay. When you started masturbating.
Oh my God, no. Okay.
How? What technique did you use?
Yeah, that's too open.
To hide it from them, because as kids we all think like, I can't. I'm too embarrassed. I don't want them to know. And I came up with a trick. Me personally.
You're really not going to let go of this, are you?
No, we can always cut it out. But we came up with this. I thought I invented it. Apparently, other kids had done the same thing, but I called it the inverted sock method.
Okay.
And I'm not going to go any further than that.
Please don't.
But my question, actually, Cosmo, when did you know that they were more than just parents? Because I see you two together, and you guys are really, truly friends. About how old were you, and how did it happen?
Oh God. Well, first off, I can't let this get to his head, so this is just gonna be. This is close your ears, and you slip me the 20 after. But no, I think it started to happen when I started to have conversations with my friends about what they wanted to do differently as parents. I'll tell you what I mean by this.
Nice.
I think people, or at least my friends, were all too ready to be like, oh, I know exactly how I want to raise my kids differently.
Yeah.
You know, like my parents were too helicopter-y or too disconnected or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But for me, it was the exact opposite. My fear was that, oh my God, I'm never going to be able to recreate how this guy has done it for my own kids. And I think it was at that moment that I was like, oh, that probably means I like him. Like, he's nice.
Okay.
He's a good guy.
Nice.
Oh,
See?
Man.
How do you feel?
that's sweet. I love you.
Yeah. You're right.
Look, I don't know where we go from there other than to say it's time to introduce our actual next guest.
Okay.
Can we do that?
Yeah. I tell you what, I think I hooked the last one. Why you hooked this one? Because this is amazing, people.
Our next guest is someone who you already know and love from all kinds of roles she's played on the stage, the small, the big screen. But she has also had this unique and powerful journey, not only with her own parents, but as a parent herself. So stick around, and we're going to meet her right after I give my son $50 for saying such nice things about me.
And also, once he does that, Cosmo, could you just get out of the shot? Because I feel very uncomfortable sitting next to someone so gorgeous. I feel great. I don't feel bad when I'm sitting next to him.
That's easy. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Be good humans, be good humans, be good humans, or we will think you suck.
And we're back.
We are.
So, Trey.
Yes. I would like very much to introduce the one and only Amy Brenneman. Talk about humanizing. She is completely and totally slumming it to join us today. We are absolutely not worthy. Amy Brenneman, my friends, is a Harvard-educated writer, director, producer, podcaster, teacher, and Emmy, Golden Globe, SAG, People's Choice, TV Guide, Peabody Award nominated actress with an astounding array of credits. We're talking about Judging Amy.
Boom.
Casper.
Boom.
Heat.
Boom.
It's going to be a lot of booms. NYPD Blue, Frasier, Fear, Goliath, Private Practice, Daylight, The Leftovers, the Jane Austen Book Club, Tell Me Your Secrets. She's currently starring in one of my favorite shows of all time with Jeff Bridges and John Lithgow in The Old Man on Hulu. Amy Brenneman, I am asking you this first because I know you happen to have a degree in comparative religion, so I need to ask you, why in God's name are you talking to us? It makes no sense, but we're delighted to have you here. Thank you for coming.
Oh my goodness, I'm so happy to be here. Your family, that's why.
Well, that's
family
nice.
Show up.
And it's appropriate because we're talking about parents today.
Before we get into that though, I think we should say that you and your wife Nancy have been friends with Amy and her lovely husband Brad, who is a very dear friend of ours as well.
We love us some Brad Silverling. Yeah. But yeah, Amy, we're here with you today, and we're talking about parents and parenting, and I wonder what you would be willing to share with us about your own parents.
Sure. My parents were extraordinary people. They've both passed away now. I helped them both transition, which was really an incredible honor. My parents met at Harvard Law School. My mom was in the first class of women there, and she went there to find a husband, which she did. So I love the fun fact, she was in the first class of women, but they actually were the first married couple ever at Harvard Law School, which is an even better fact.
Oh, wow.
They were madly in love and were till for 65 years. My parents, so it's interesting. It's kind of, I was listening to you, Brian. It's sort of the opposite where they didn't get married so late. I think my mom was 25, my dad was 22, but they wanted to finish law school. My dad had to go in the army, and then they had a hard time getting pregnant. So they desperately wanted kids. So that we always felt, and they were actually just about to, I think there's some crazy story. They put in some papers to adopt. They're like, it's not going to happen. And then the day they got we found you a kid, my mother was pregnant. And so we I have two older brothers, and we were very much wanted. It was not taken for granted that they would be parents. And I got the pole position as the baby girl. So I can honestly say from the get, we were desired, wanted. They both came from pretty shitty backgrounds. So they definitely were like, we got to not only do it differently, we have to figure out like, how do you do holidays? And they just were.
Wow.
And so they really, these traditions that I thought were like generations, my brother and I were like, God, they just made that up.
Right.
Like you're a kid. You're like, it's always, this is the way we do holidays in this family that you just made up.
But they were winging it. They were winging it from the beginning. Yeah.
They were winging it. Yeah, they were winging it. And, I would say as individuals, two things. There's many things to say about them. My father got sober when I was 17. He was 51.
Wow.
So I think the greatest gift was to watch somebody wake up and become more and more and more present and have a spiritual practice and have a community engagement. I am also a 12-stepper. It just became part of what you do is look after your emotional and mental health.
Sure.
And bring that to your community. He just did it. He went to 3 meetings a week till the week he died,
Right.
So,
right. I'm sorry, your father was an attorney, right?
Right. So my parents was an attorney. My mother was a judge.
Right. So you didn't get away with anything growing up, probably.
We did not get away with anything. Yeah. But although it's interesting, Brian, my brother, Matthew, who now is also an attorney, he was a pretty rowdy kid and sold marijuana and did this and that in high school. I was like you, but I wouldn't say, I wouldn't report, like I didn't want to cause them problems in such a positive way. I think it was just like, oh, these poor schmucks. Like I don't want it. So it took me a while to be rebellious, to be a full human. I just I was just in this good girl straitjacket a little bit.
Were they strict? Were they strict parents? Like one way or the?
No, it was very similar to what you're describing because I had an older sibling who had pushed the boundaries a little bit. Okay. They weren't super strict. I mean, they were trying to kind of hang in. No, and I didn't have a curfew, same deal, because they weren't strict. We were just all fucking codependent together. Oh, I'm sorry, that's the F-bomb. But I mean, I didn't want to cause them problems, but in a way that it didn't allow me to actually rebel and individuate and do the things you have to do, and which I did a little bit later.
How did they feel about you getting into acting? Was that something that was completely supportive at first, or?
Well, it was. I broke it to him slowly, and it broke it to myself very slowly. I mean, I grew up in Central Connecticut. I didn't know anybody in the business. However, I started doing plays when I was 11 and was always happiest when I was. What I love is collective art making. That's just I love it. I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
So I was in plays. I think I was just talking about this to a friend the other day. At 17, if I had said I'm not going to college, I'm going to New York, they would not have. But I went to college. I got a degree. At college, we, my dear friends that are still my dear friends, we formed a theater company that we were on the road for about 6 years. And we worked with, essentially marginalized communities, creating theater projects. So, and I did do a lot of teaching. So I was kind of acting, but I was kind of a social worker. So It's really when I was like 27 or 28, I was like, I'm getting a headshot. I'm getting an agent.
Okay.
But at that point it seems young now, but I was old enough where I wasn't a flake,
But like you said, you slowly let them into it, and you slowly let yourself into that.
I didn't. Space. I mean, I have a very Trey knows. It's like in a second I could like drop out and just run a theater program for 12-year-olds. That's I don't know what I think about Hollywood, except when it's fun and I've been able to make a living, which is amazing.
We'll sprinkle some of this in because of all the projects that Trey mentioned in your intro, but. The Old Man is something very, very special, and you are amazing in it. Can't imagine anybody else playing that role. But the first episode I saw with that, what was it, 12-minute fight?
Yeah, it's pretty intense.
It just kept going and going and going and going. Yeah. Were you a fan of his? And also I wanted to ask... did you immediately read the script and go, I've got to be a part of the show, or how did that happen?
I was always a fan of Jeff Bridges.
Oh, yeah.
And always, and Lithgow. But Jeff Bridges, I mean, there are many, many movies that I've tattooed in my psyche. So it's like, oh my God, he's just one of the greats.
Yeah.
No, when I read the script, I was like, oh, it's another boy thing. And I'm used to kind of being at the center of my own story now.
Sure.
On stage and off stage. So it took me a little bit of convincing.
And how did they convince you?
Well, because the creators are so smart, and it's like, oh, you're using the meta. We're talking meta. I mean, quite literally, what I said is this reminds me of a movie Heat that I did 25, 30 years ago, where I'm like on the outside, like, oh, you're a bad guy, and oh, but I love you anyway. And I was like, I cannot do that to my psyche or to feminism. I just can't,
Yeah.
But they said, oh, no. We talk about this as, they literally call Zoe, my character, Edie evolved. Yeah. So what if it's Edie, but it's 25 years later? So instead of like, you're a bad guy, I love you, it's like, you're a bad guy, get out of my house. Like literally get out of my house.
Yeah, I've been there, done that. Yeah.
So it's like and I am quite literally dialoguing with my younger self and with culture from 25 years ago. And it's a pretty active dialogue. And then obviously anytime I get to look into Jeff Bridges' eyes and to feel beloved by Jeff Bridges is like really one of the high points of my life.
Yeah. No, this is like me looking you in the eyes.
It is. It's a high point for you, isn't it?
Well, okay. So, but it's interesting that you bring up being at the center of your own story, because I know that a big part of your story, an enormous part of your story off camera and off stage, is your role of being a parent. Right. So, in as much as you were influenced by your own parents, and then also recognizing at a certain point that they were winging it, as you look back on it, you had to wing it yourself like the rest of us as parents do. She's got 2 kids who aren't such kids anymore. A brilliant, wonderful son who's killing it in college. Mm-hmm. And also her oldest daughter, Charlotte, who has taken you, I know, on an extraordinary journey as a parent, and I wonder if you can talk to us a little bit more about that journey.
Yeah, I mean, first, I will say, and so Trey's middle son is born 4 days after Charlotte, but the good news is they already had Clementine, so they kind of knew. I mean, I cannot even tell you how much I leaned on you and Nance, and still. I felt really clueless, and you were
equally clueless,
the least judgmental, the most available, funny. I mean, you know how I feel. I mean,
pretty good parents to base some of your new parenting knowledge on. I mean, they've done such, and I'm not just saying this, they've done an amazing job with these 3.
Oh yeah. And also the complexities, and it may be different when you're a younger parent, as you were talking about your folks, but I was a working mom. In a job that was taking 18 hours a day. And I never thought Judging Amy would be a hit. And I kind of hoped that it wouldn't, just because it's really tiring to star in an hour-long drama. Yeah. But I was 34 and it was a hit. And I just remember looking to Brad and I was like, oh shit.
And emotional too. We should say, should remind people, because I was a huge fan of that show, but it was based on your mom and her experiences. So when we talk about parenting and influences,
right. And I always, I mean, quite honestly, so just a small anecdote, and then I want to talk more about my kids, but when I was pregnant the second season of Judging Amy, I gave birth basically right around that hiatus. And then I came back when she was 4 months old, and I was nursing. And because I was so stressed out, the milk dried up, and the this and the that. And I did not want to be on a TV show. I just wanted to be with my baby.
Of course.
And every day I would come home from work and I'd say to Brad, what would happen if I blew out of this show? And, he was always like, listen, your mental health is the number one thing. You'd probably not be able to work for a while, or this or that. But then even at that time, and I do want to say this, as an artist and as a woman who has an identity apart from being a mother, I realized that my creative, the playful, the person that comes up with the new ideas, my little inner creative is about 5 years old. And I realized with Charlotte, I was in fact having my second child, the first one being myself. And if I just ditched my show, that's when parenting goes sour. I mean, I had an alcoholic, father. I mean, things can go really wrong if we abandon ourselves entirely.
That's true.
To try to be a good parent. Now, was the balance in my life was completely whacked, and it was like, this is not ideal. But I had that wisdom of like, hold up, this is my first child was Judging Amy, basically. It came from my whole psyche.
Yeah.
So it was a crazy time. And then Charlotte, my daughter, from the day she was born, she had this very rare, she still does, a very rare endocrine disorder, which was kind of like, that's weird, but treatable. Thank God we have the same endocrinologist. And but then when she was like 2, it's like she's not walking, or she was walking, but she's not talking, she's not doing, she's delayed, she's developmentally delayed. So that really started us on this journey of special ed and finding the right schools and finding the right this and that, which was an incredible down the rabbit hole of an Alice in Wonderland that I did not know existed. And that's when my parents, my mother in particular, had such a long journey with Charlotte, because in my family, it wasn't about being beautiful or athletic prowess. Families have different ways of gauging themselves.
Sure.
In my family, it was really intellectual prowess. And here I got this kiddo with an intellectual disability.
Yeah. Right. That's tough.
So like the agony of that for years, and kind of siding with my daughter, but sometimes siding with my mom. And she didn't even, it just was such a journey for all of us.
It's a lot to navigate.
Yeah, we're in a completely, and also, so Charlotte, basically the end of that story is she has a very, very, very rare chromosomal abnormality, which 1,400 people in the world a couple years ago, I'm sure there's more now, very rare. So
in the world, 1,400 in the world?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be a lot more, to be honest, because folks that maybe she's never been in the autism club because just her disability is different, but it's all because of the Genome Project, right? It's just a blood draw. So there's going to be lots of folks that go like, oh my gosh, I finally have a name for this thing. But if it's called Phelan-McDermott syndrome, and if you go on the little website, Charlotte's like a superstar. Like, it's like, oh, many Phelan-McDermott folks like don't have any language, never toilet, never this, never that. Right. So then it became like, as my brother put it, he's like, oh, she's been running a marathon with one leg, and we don't know because neurobiology is so hidden, right?
Yeah.
She has what you call an invisible disability. So then I began to parent her so much better. I stopped comparing her to the wrong people.
Right, sure.
Yep.
And so I think that's the other thing when we talk about parenting. I parent my children very differently. They need different things from me. So I also think that's part of it. Sometimes people can have a big jolly, I grew up with like really big Catholic families because Central Connecticut, lots of, 7 kids, 8 kids. Some good things about it, challenging, but I think the idea, it's like, I parent all my kids the same. It's like, that's not good because everybody's different.
That's right. I mean, it is something that you don't, again, when we talk about winging it, like you experience this in just within your own siblings and seeing the way, here's the sister who runs away, here's the way my dad handles me and my brother. Yeah. Like you recognize pretty early on, I think, if you're trying to do the best job you can as a parent, you start to recognize that the same rules don't necessarily apply to these very different people.
Does that go for like the way you communicate with them as well as the decisions you make?
100%. I always say, Clementine and Crockett and Cosmo all come from the same gene pool, but they are all radically different human beings.
And that's fun for you, isn't it? I mean,
it's
once
fun,
you get it.
But it's also, as Amy is speaking to directly with Bodhi or Charlotte, like these are two different people, and you can't, it's not one rule applies to all. You kind of have to figure that out and negotiate that situation. So once you finally were able to understand what Charlotte was up against, like you say, your brother running the one-legged marathon, like then you were able to sort of, you think, more effectively parent her and maybe even
I mean, then, I was talking to somebody about this the other day, like, I'm just so much happier getting older. I'm happier when my kids are getting older. And it wasn't like, and I loved when they were babies, but I never am nostalgic for that time because in my experience, in my family's experience, there was so many unknowns and honestly, when you have a loved one with a disability or a kid with a disability, it's like, how does this look like in adulthood? Patriarchal capitalism is not built for people that aren't going to make a living wage. What does it look like? And once we got the diagnosis and we found our way to this extraordinary, I mean, first of all, I'm an art making activist. That's who I am. So we're finding our way. She had a wonderful boarding school that she went to. And then I, with some other people, bought a small apartment building and we created this support. It's what I'm built for. Quite literally, parenting her is what I'm built for, but I didn't know it. And it took me a while to realize, like, and then also it's funny, I just saw a rough cut of a documentary a friend made about the Gallaudet University and deaf community. There's within disability, but I also think this is a parenting thing writ large. It certainly is a 12-step thing writ large. The initial thing is, how can I fix it? And then go back to normal, right? And you don't go back to normal. What is normal? Again, it's usually capitalistic patriarchy. So then you go, oh, what is this world that we're creating together? And usually our kids turn us on to something we didn't know, or it's I had an awesome moment, actually. I think Bodhi would be comfortable with me sharing this. So my son finished his freshman year of college, and he was a very good student, serious student in high school. Also COVID, not a lot of fun, right? So we kept going, like, remember to have fun, and and also because we're in a very STEM-oriented, data-oriented moment in our educational history. You know, we're like, remember art making and remember filmmaking and just self-expression. Just remember that too.
Of course.
So, so he goes to college, not sure what he's getting, but he keeps gravitating toward like business stuff. And I'm like, okay, well, and then I'm like, so he got into this wonderful filmmaking club, and he did make a couple of movies. So anyway, cut to May, we're about to go into a movie, and he said we were talking about his cousin, actually, he was in law school, and I said, oh, what do people do in the summers, first year, second year law school? We're talking about that, and then he said something about business school in general. I must have rolled my eyes because he said to me, and this was the best, he was like, Mom, I have to talk to you about something. I've been talking about it a lot with Kathleen in therapy, which also blew my mind. Like, oh my God, I've talked about my mother in therapy. I was like, now I'm the mom, you know?
Yeah.
But he said, I feel like you and Dad don't take my interest in business seriously, that you want me to go into humanities and art making. And I was like, dang, you're right, you know? And we laughed because it was the opposite of most families, you know?
Yeah.
And then it was really cool. We went into the movie. I considered going to a shame spiral about my terrible parenting, and then I didn't. And then we got in the car, and I said, you know, this is not defending myself, but I'm trying to think about where that came from, you know? And I said, I think it's because you are so practical, and maybe it's the moment we're in because everything feels topsy-turvy. Every choice as an undergrad, it's like, I want this to be practical and applicable to my career. And I was like, you know, honey, we really do believe in a liberal arts education. What that means to us is this is the 4 years where you get to bump into a poetry class. You don't have to be so responsible all the time, you know? Yeah. And also, I believe self-expression, just like going to the gym, eating healthy, it's part of being a human being. So whether it's a guitar lesson or watercolor, I do want to say that as your mama, that's part of being well-balanced. But I did say, I stand corrected.
Nice.
And I said, here's the difference between me and my mom. Yeah. I nailed my mom's on some stuff, and she could hear it sometimes.
Right.
She could not she just didn't have self-awareness. She could not actually make the change so that the comments would still come. And I said, I heard you and I will make that change. And I did.
What's great about this, and for a lot of us, is you know your parents are doing what they're doing, even though it's maybe not what you want or you want something different. They're doing it. If you have the wherewithal to understand this, they're doing it because they think they want what's right for you, obviously, and they love you, and they want to send you in the right direction, do the best job they can. And you confronting them, you know, kind of that's a lot of people should do that.
Well, yeah, I was just going to say the high point, my takeaway from that is parent to parent, like you clearly fostered an environment where your kid feels comfortable communicating with you
that's true.
About his feelings. And that's key. But I also think it's part and parcel of being such an effective communicator as you are, being an artist. And this is what I want to talk about next, because, you know, in addition to all of Amy's accolades on TV and in the movies, she's also been quite accomplished on the stage, right? In Pulitzer Prize nominated plays like Rapture, Bliss, or Burn, or Power of Sale with Bryan Cranston, which is written by my friend Paul Grelong. Amazing show. She also recently completely blew my mind in The Sound Inside at Pasadena Playhouse.
But she's got a project or had a project out.
That's it. Probably most relevant to what we're talking about right now. Amy just recently co-wrote and starred in a powerfully autobiographical play called Overcome that just had a sold out run at the Cotuit Center for the Arts in Cape Cod. Amy, will you tell us more about, because this is sort of the merging of your roles as parent and artist. Tell us more about what made that show so particularly special for you as both a parent and a performer.
Yeah, well, I think that I do use autobiographical material. I had an illness 15 years ago. I need to get it up and out, especially when things are so overwhelming. Because I work in, as you do, Trey, like scripts, beginning, middle, and end. I think the big breakthrough was my collaborator, Sabrina, kept saying, like, just write bits and bobs. Think like a songwriter or a poet. Think like a poet.
Yeah. Sure.
And just sort of like, okay, if it's sticking to me, it might be an interesting thing.
Right.
Overcome started out as something called Threshold in 2016, which was quite literally about me being between my mother and my daughter. And then in 2019, it was still called Threshold, I think. But I sort of took my mom out because I was feeling sort of guilty that I was trashing her. I produced here on Martha's Vineyard, 3,000 miles away, and I was like, I feel bad about that. But also, I put what she was saying into a character I literally call dominant culture, and I talked to dominant culture. I'm like, hey, why do because there are these? It's the air that we breathe. This ableism situation,
of course.
just like racism and patriarchy, we got to keep going, like, why do I think this way? Or
right.
So overcome. So we did it here on Martha's Vineyard in 2019. Charlotte appears with me at the very, very end in a very it happened very organically. My collaborator Sabrina kept saying, like, we should put more of Charlotte's story in. I was like, she gets to write her own story. This is the story of the ally, the bad ally. Because I do not want to get into telling stories about folks with disabilities. I will be pilloried, and she gets to write her own story. So she comes out with me at the end, and then right after 2019, I really wanted a full production, which I got at South Coast Rep in California. It was scheduled anyway. Then COVID, off we go. So I just did it because Charlotte's wonderful school, the Riverview School, which is on the Cape, does something called Transition Weekend in the spring of every year, and it's really for parents and families and what does adulthood look like? If you're lucky enough to find a good school, it's like, oh, thank God we're here. But like, what does it look like? And it's, so I thought, like, I would like to do this play because ultimately what happens is, you think you're psychological. It's like, oh, here's my family situation. It's a much bigger story.
Of course.
And honestly, what I think back now, and again, I try not to go into the shame spiral, but it's as if I had a kid that was gay and I didn't know it, and I was trying to jam her into the straight world. It's as fundamental as that. I did not know about neurodiversity and about the assumptions that I was making of, like, I just want you to fit into the world as it is. Well, guess what? The world as it is isn't so good. And so we need to break open this whole thing. So it became not only parenting and art making, but the activism piece. It's like, holy tamale, this is what I've been thinking about all my life.
Right.
So it was kind of an amazing experience. And I forgot, actually, we did a dress rehearsal. People come up to me, but they really come up to Charlotte with tears in their eyes. They need to hug her. So I said to her after that dress rehearsal, I was like, honey, I kind of forgot how emotional people are after this. And if it gets too much, if you don't want to be in the lobby, there's other private places at the theater you can hang out. I mean, Trey, you would not like Charlotte, because Charlotte can get sensory stuff, overwhelmed. She literally she knows, it's like a politician. Thank you for coming. I'm so glad you liked it. Here's like, she intuited that her presence was an important part of this experience.
Did she enjoy the being on stage part?
She comes on stage at the very end and literally, and it's the reason it's so powerful. And it was very organic when it happened. But when you watch it, and this happens all the time, you're watching somebody do a stand-up routine and they're like trashing on their wife or something. And you're kind of like, this is funny, but is she cool with it? Right. By Charlotte, because I've basically been talking about Charlotte, not always in derogatory ways, but sometimes. I mean, by the end of the play, I have a different point of view on it. But when she comes out, it's just breathtakingly beautiful. And it blesses the whole thing. Like, it's sort of this, there's kind of a bookend to the whole show. And it's a talent show that I found myself in a couple of years ago, where people who are actually much more impacted than she was, right? But there's moaning and there's like Tourette's. There's also, so I'm like, how did I get here? And so the beginning of it, it's sort of like it's like a bad, weird dream. It's like I'm in this room and there's weird stuff happening and da. So then you go on this journey, and then I come at the end and I was like, and now we're back in the basement, and I see it really differently. And I see the vastness of human diversity, and I hear the deep need for human expression. And then I see my daughter, and then she comes out.
Was this cathartic?
For sure. Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, there's a moment. So I have, people sometimes think it's like, oh, it's a one woman show. I was like, no, there's 2 dancers, there's 6 actors. We have a drummer. So, but there are these 2 dancers who actually have known Charlotte for a long time, who sort of embody her energy. I didn't want anybody playing Charlotte. I didn't want her. I didn't want to play Charlotte. but it's sort of this abstracted, but very visceral experience of what it was like, and Trey was around, like when it would just go haywire. So there's a terrible moment that's sort of a rock bottom moment where it's like Thanksgiving dinner and my mom saying what's wrong with her and she can't sit and she's tantruming, and then I scream and I say like, why? Because we didn't have the diagnosis, so it's like, why can't you sit at the table? Why can't you do what other people are doing? What the fuck is wrong with you?
Mm-hmm.
And right before we were rehearsing that back in 2019, and Charlotte was just poking around. She hadn't gone to camp yet. She loves a rehearsal room, and Sabrina said, "You talk to Charlotte about the scene that's coming up." And I was like, and I turned to my beautiful 18-year-old. I was like, this is a scene about when you didn't have a lot of words and I didn't really know how to help you. And we were both really frustrated. And she was like, yeah.
This is a hallmark of good parenting, is this kind of communication, regardless of how your kids communicate.
Well, not to shy away from it. It's like we all lived through that and we are not there now. And so I think the catharsis is like, there's a thing that we were, non-neurodiverse kids use it too. It's a great here's a great parenting tool, I will say to your audience. It's called social stories, right? So let's say you have like a really shitty day, or more specifically, like somebody has a meltdown at Six Flags, right? And then you go home and with terrible, like, Trey could do this better because he's a better artist than I am, but with stick figures, I would say like, here's Charlotte, she got hot, mom said it was time to go, she fell apart. It's like, and then it's the most magical thing. It's the power of storytelling, because then it's not me. Also, like, she's really good with eye contact, but it's a very confrontational thing. Like, let's talk about it, right? But if you're looking at the story, we're like, oh, that was a really intense day. Look at this story. But I feel like my original work is social stories for myself. It's like, this happened. Yeah. And if it stays in my body, I don't understand it. I can't work with it. And then the icing on the cake is if it's helpful to others, or if it creates an interesting piece of art.
Do you plan to do another staging of this play? Because you mentioned briefly the other cast members, the dancers, the characters, and it just seems I've got to see this. And I'm not just trying to hook it for you, but I mean, I really would love to see this. It was enthralling when I read about it in the reviews and your description of it.
Yeah. I mean, we do need to figure out how to slim it down. But yes, what it made me, I mean, not to toot our own horns, but like when we did it in March, I was like, oh, this works. It's sturdy. We keep returning to it. It works. You know what I mean? It's like a song. It's like, oh, that works again, Yeah. And there's something about the abstraction. I'm such a language-based creator, but really Sabrina, I've known Sabrina since I was 18. And she's a choreographer, and there's something about things going abstract, which is also something you can do a little bit more seamlessly on stage. You can do it on film and television, but it tends to be a little bit more literal. But like that thing when the feeling gets too big and it needs to go abstract, or you go off language, that's a moment that's really interesting to me.
Yeah. Well, listen, I you know this, but I'm going to say it anyway because it bears repeating. You're an extraordinary woman, Amy. I'm proud to call you a friend, but I'm also proud as a parent to have been at least a part of your journey, but to hear you speak about it in such open and giving terms. To recognize the effort that you have put into communicating with your kids in very different ways, taking the lessons you learned from your parents and applying them to your own efforts of winging it as a parent, as we all do. All of these things are, for us, I know, clear examples of what make you such a good human, and we are deeply appreciative that you have taken the time to share any or all of these things with us. I also know that you're a passionate supporter of many causes, but specifically as the parent of a neurodivergent daughter, I know that there's, especially on the heels of Overcome, that this Cotuit Center for the Arts is something that is near and dear to your heart, and it is truly an amazing nonprofit. It runs an incredible and also fully inclusive art making group, which I know is your jam, Amy. So if you're listening to us or you're watching us and you would like to know how you could be supportive of the Cotuit Center for the Arts, go to artsonthecape.org, which is a great way to support their work. We're also going to post the link on our website, begoodhumanspodcast.com. Help them out if you can. But also, please join us in thanking the amazing Amy Brenneman for taking the time to be with us today. We love you.
We love you too. I love you. Thank you for doing this and for skewing to a positive route in a moment where people are more interested in negativity.
And thank you. But also, I want to tell everyone, make sure today, quit. No, don't quit, but just take the day off if you're at work listening, and go home and watch The Old Man.
Yeah.
You are, it's different. It's a step above. It's great. And again, Amy is wonderful in it.
Thank you for being such a good mom.
Season 2 on September 12th. We just got the announcement.
Oh,
so September 12th, season 2.
Am I in it or no? No.
There's always hope for season 3, man.
We'll hold out for that. Thank you very much, Amy.
Thank you.
Be good humans, be good humans, be good humans, or we will think you suck.
Hey, everybody, if you haven't already, go to begoodhumanspodcast.com. Mm-hmm. There's going to be a little place there for you to make your suggestions. If you have good humans in your life, people you think we might want to talk to on the show.
If you are watching us on YouTube, do us a big favor. Please click like and subscribe. That would be very helpful to us. Also, follow us on the socials if you don't already, at Facebook and Instagram and Threads and TikTok and X and all that stuff. And then if you feel like being an especially good human, join us on Patreon. You're going to get all kinds of fun extra stuff. Bonus material didn't make it into the show, some exclusive videos and posts. Super cool exclusive access to special stuff that you cannot get for free on the podcast or through our social media accounts.
Thank you for joining us. And to you all, be good humans.
Be good humans, be good humans, be good humans, or we will think you suck.
Be Good Humans is executive produced by Brian Phelps, Trey Calloway, and Grant Anderson, with associate producers Sean Fitzgerald and Clementine Calloway in partnership with Straw Hut Media. Please like, follow, and subscribe, and remember, be good humans.